You informed.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Burby's 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio.
Good day. Welcome to your news at noon on Kaieteur Radio. I'm Kevin Smith. Environmental and human rights activist Danuta Radzik has urged the Environmental Protection Agency to hold off on granting environmental permits to ExxonMobil for more oil projects until the requisite systems are put in place to adequately monitor and regulate the industry. Radzik, in a 16-page submission addressed to the Executive Director of the EPA, Kemraj Parsaram, on the Environmental Impact Assessment submitted by Exxon for the fifth oil project, Uaru, said the document submitted by the oil company's consultant exposes the lack of an established regulatory mechanism in Guyana, particularly as it relates to waste materials and chemicals associated with offshore production activities. The consultant being Acorn International. Radzik pointed out that after more than 3 years of operation in the Liza 1 project and almost 8 years after the discovery of hydrocarbons in commercial quantities, the nation is yet to implement laws to hold petroleum companies accountable for their actions. The activist cautioned that in the absence of Guyana's capacity to regulate the sector, oil companies enjoy the role of both operator and regulator, with a wide discretion for voluntary industry standards that do not often adhere to the stringent protection standards in international guidelines. Last Thursday, a U.S. House committee advanced legislation that would increase the federal offshore royalties that Louisiana and other oil and gas producing states receive. New Orleans, Los Angeles, or NOLA news agency reported that the move by the House committee was done for the first time in a decade. The revenue sharing increase that Louisiana has been seeking since 2006 will be part of the bill that is the #1 priority for the House this term, NOLA reported. The new bill is an amalgamation of a dozen or so energy-related measures that were heard and advanced out of House committees on Thursday. H.R. 1 will likely receive a vote by the full House by the end of the month. The Budgeting for Renewable Electrical Energy Zone Earnings Act, called BREEZE, would increase royalty payments to Louisiana and other producing states from 37.5% to 50% of the take and remove the cap that limited the amount of total money going from the federal treasury to the states. And in other news, environmental activist Simone Mangal-Joly has written to President Irfan Ali asking that he reconsider the appointed Environmental Assessment Board members. The board is a mandatory body required by the Environmental Protection Act. In summary, this board plays a critical role in approving projects that may impact the environment. Government projects are also subjected to the scrutiny of this process. The government appointed Dr. Mahendra Sharma as chairman of the board and Dr. Garvin Cummings and Mr. Jocelyn McKenzie as members of the board. It should be noted that Dr. Sharma heads the Guyana Energy Agency, while McKenzie functions as the permanent secretary for the Ministry of Natural Resources. Dr. Cummings is the chief hydrometeorological officer. Given the individual functions of the appointed members in their respective state-owned entities, Mangal Jolie told President Ali in a letter, "It is disappointing that rather than address the issues of conflicts of interest with government duties, you have doubled down on appointed a board with 2 of 3 members having direct conflicts of interest with their government duties." She went further to note that this decision is in fact a step backward, as a newly appointed Environmental Assessment Board now lacks in its entirety any members with expertise in environmental protection, coupled with the fact that it is built with government representatives. And in other news, on Friday, some of the biggest banks in the United States, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, collectively lost more than $50 billion in market value in one day. On the other hand, those banks still exist, but you cannot say the same for Silicon Valley. As of Friday morning, Silicon Valley Bank has gone under completely. That makes it the second biggest bank failure in the history of the U.S. The Silicon Valley Bank financed nearly half of all venture-backed healthcare and technology companies in the United States. It also apparently held significant cash reserves for some of the biggest cryptocurrencies, and it is now federal. Now it's gone. Federal regulators have renamed it and taken it over. This means that a lot of people lost a lot of money that apparently was not insured. And now let's tell you, police are investigating an alleged chopping incident that occurred yesterday that has led to the death of a 22-year-old man and left another person hospitalized at the New Amsterdam hospital. The dead man has been identified as Kevin Jr. Small. Regional Commander Shiv Prasad Bacchus confirmed that, based on information received, there was a fight between several youths in the Angois Avenue area, which reportedly led to the incident. Small was found with injuries and in an unconscious state at a house in Budansky, Vride, West Kanji, Berbice. The house is said to be a location where Small would usually hang out with other friends. 51-year-old Kevin Small, the father of the dead man, said that on Saturday, 3 individuals armed with cutlasses were looking for some persons in relation to a chopping incident that occurred 2 nights prior, and that his son was involved. And just before we head to a break, let's tell you that a 59-year-old laborer of Kurukururu, Linden Soosdijk Highway was on Wednesday last found shot dead just 1 day after his house was reportedly broken into and ransacked. The dead man was identified as Brian Thomas. Police believe that he was killed inside his home between 23 hours and 23 hours 30. The body of Thomas, according to police, was found lying in the doorway of his second bedroom. It was clad in a gray vest and blue short pants. Blood was reportedly seen on the right side of his abdomen, and 2 9mm spent shells were found on his kitchen floor. Police do not know who might have wanted Thomas dead and why, but according to reports, there is a female witness claiming that she saw 2 men running into Thomas's home and confronting him just mere minutes before he was killed. She described one of them as puffy-haired. You listen to Kaieteur Radio, and this is your News at Noon. We'll return shortly after the break.
This is GHK Lal inviting you to join me weekdays from Monday to Friday on the National Outlook for commentary on a range of issues. Immediately after the 12 noon and 7 p.m. newscasts on Kaieteur Radio at 99.1 FM and 99.5 FM. Looking forward to you sharing in the conversation.
Welcome back. Let's continue with the news. A woman is presently hospitalized at a city hospital after she was shot with an arrow and bow during an alleged drunken brawl at Falstop, a village located halfway along the Port Kaituma to Matthews Ridge Trail, Northwest District. The woman has been identified as Diane David. Information suggests that Davis had gotten into an altercation with another woman and was chopping her. The woman's brother allegedly retaliated by shooting Davis with an arrow. Both Davis and the woman she was accused of chopping were reportedly rushed to the hospital while the suspect was taken into custody. According to police, the case is being treated as an attempted murder. And coming from the New York Times, America's debt is now 6 times what it was at the start of the 21st century. It is the largest it has been compared with the size of the U.S. economy since World War II, and it's projected to grow an average of about $1.3 trillion a year for the next decade. The United States hit its $31.4 trillion legal limit on borrowing last month, putting Washington on the brink of another fiscal showdown. Republicans are refusing to raise that limit unless President Biden agrees to steep spending cuts, echoing a partisan standoff that has played out multiple times in the last 2 decades. And on Sunday, relatives and neighbors of the missing Bosai bulldozer operator staged a protest in front of the entrance of the Bosai bauxite plant. They were outraged that the company is yet to make a public statement on the matter and demanded that it shut down operations until the body of the bulldozer operator, 59-year-old Neptrine Hercules, is found. They chanted, "Tear up, no tear up," which is his alias, "no work." We understand that the Linderners wanted Bosai to conduct a 24-hour search for Hercules, but the search ended at 18 hours on Saturday due to bad light. One man said bad light should not be an excuse for stopping the search because throughout the many years of service Hercules gave the company, he was forced to risk his life by working late hours in bad light. And the 8 opposition members of Parliament who were suspended for their disruptive behavior in Parliament and the removal of the parliamentary mace in 2021 have been issued with letters demanding that they pay the monies owed to the state in the suspension case within 7 days from March 10, 2023. Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Anil Nandlal wrote opposition member and Attorney-at-Law Roysdale Ford on March 10th for the 8 MPs to make the payment. And on that note, we turn the pages of today's Kaieteur News to page 7, of course, usually dedicated to being blunt. Investor confidence. How about Guyanese confidence? John Hess is talking his language, investor confidence. Like parrots, the PPPC government speaks the exact language. Returns for foreign investors, safety of investment for foreigners. The PPP and foreigners don't want Guyanese riled up, raging in the streets. They want Guyanese to be like donkeys, docile and dumb. If Guyanese want, they can be, but not us. Not ever.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465 or 226-8210 today.